I feel like that's where corporate America is heading. And it scares me because it's not good.
Welcome back to the Badass Leaders Podcast. And today's guest is Lynn Herrick, an executive who's not afraid to tackle the hard stuff. From helping take GreatCall from startup to an $800 million acquisition by Best Buy, to building inclusive, high-performing teams across industries, Lynn knows what it really takes to lead when the pressure's on. She is joining us today to talk about leadership that actually works, especially when things get messy. So stick around, and if you want more insights, behind-the-scenes clips, and the kind of leadership inspiration that doesn't feel like fluff, be sure to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn. We'd love to connect with you and hear your thoughts. So are you ready? I am. Join me, Angela Gilnelms, on today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast, where I'm joined each week by industry experts for intimate and eye-opening discussions about the challenges and joys facing the leaders of today. Listen in and get ready to scale your company, grow your brand, and unlock your full badass potential. Okay, listeners, I am very excited to have a friend of Vicki Bradley's here. If you remember, Vicki Bradley was on the podcast. She's episode 7. And she runs Women in Leadership Empowered. And she's so amazing. I said, hey, do you know any other amazing, really empowering, brilliant, badass women? And she sent me Lynn's name. So we have Lynn here today. Lynn, go ahead and tell us about yourself and why you decided to join us on the Badass Leaders Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be with you here today, and I love the whole concept of the podcast, and I told Vicki this as well, that there's just a forum now to have these conversations and to learn from people and to listen, and this just did not exist when I was coming up, and I think it's a huge benefit to all people, but especially women coming up in leadership. There's just so much good information, so many great stories out there. I am traditionally a lawyer, went through law school and went to a large firm and did the lawyer thing, and eventually went in-house and started to add more functions to my career. And I eventually added HR and then became a COO. I've done startups, I've done big corporate companies, and feel like I've made all the mistakes and learned all the things and love sharing it with people today.
Well, as a serial COO, which for those who don't know, Chief Operating Officer, myself, I love to list, why don't we start there, okay? Because you went from law and then HR and then built into that role as a major operational leader. So what drove that pivot? And during that pivot, was there anything from being a lawyer, going through HR, and then running so many different departments for that you had to kind of unlearn, or maybe that you didn't realize that after that you're like, oh, now that makes so much more sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't even know what a COO was when I started my career because I really went down the law path. And then as I started working in corporate America, I was like, wait, that is the most interesting job in the company. How do I get there? And it's interesting because it's different at every company. It has different meanings. I think it's super hard for women to achieve. So it had everything, that I needed as a motivation to try to achieve it. And it's a very central part of the company. So if you're the general counsel, you're important, your work is important, the company needs you, but you're kind of a side player, and you can add comments from the side, you can watch from the side. You don't have to put yourself out there. You don't have any metrics usually. You don't have to, it's safer. And as I moved into the COO role, there are metrics to reach. It's very much a central part of the company. And for me, I had to go from being a person who observed to a person who created relationships. Because now you need relationships with everyone in the company if you want this to work well. And you have to build trust. Because you're going to make some hard calls. You're going to make some unpopular calls. There's going to be tension between the tech teams and what the caring centers wants, the call centers, and what the finance team. I mean, it's just tension. And so your job, I think, is to see the big picture, to smooth those things out, to have a vision, and the best place and the best way to do that is to be an expert in the business and at the same time have really strong relationships.
I love that. I also love the COO role. And I will say that for me, the thing that I found that most people who don't know what that role entails is that someone who's going to be successful in that role, because it is different. Every organization, the departments and the responsibilities that roll up to a COO are unique to that particular company.
Agreed.
And so I will say that one of the things a lot of individuals didn't understand is that regardless of what rolls up to a COO, it's often that COO has to quickly pivot throughout the day. So when I was a COO, for example, at Florence Healthcare, right, I had customer success, I had product, I had like 6 different departments underneath me. And so I would, constantly, it wasn't like I was just focused on sales and marketing or I was just focused on coding. I was focused on all these different areas. And so that context switching was really, really hard. How did you find that for you, once again, going from being either in general counsel or human resources to something that has that level of context switching?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, for me, that's everything. That's what I'm most attracted to, especially because my most favorite thing in the world is to make connections. And so as you can make the connections between those different departments and the different things and start to decrease some of the barriers. And I love that no day is ever the same, always different. It goes from, crisis, we're going to have a recall, to we need to do something really mundane, to we need this, it's just constant. And for me, that's what makes work fun. I want to be fully engaged, fully involved, and able to just help things move along. So I think it's, again, the best part of the role. I also think what makes the COO role tricky is that there's this like, oh, is it the second to the CEO? And I think that's actually a problem because
I agree.
It's so many CEOs are reluctant to name a COO because they don't want to, upset the rest of the team and act like you put a ranking in place. And yet it's the really pivotal, important role that not everybody wants. Not everybody wants to go from thing to thing to thing. I mean, it's problem after problem after problem, right? Not everybody wants that. So I think sometimes that, and it can be a misnomer. It doesn't mean you're second in command. It doesn't, it just, again, depends on the company. But I think it's one of the reasons, that women don't necessarily get the role, right? Because it's like, oh, then that means I put her in my, that, I think that's a problem. So I think a lot of companies go too long without designating someone in that role. On the flip side, it is a pretty powerful role. So you have to recognize that, with great responsibility comes great power. And you need to manage that as well. So I think that's also the reason sometimes companies don't put that person in, because it's deemed a little too powerful as well. I don't know if you've had similar experiences.
Yeah, yes. I was just thinking about a couple of things, right? Is that one, a good COO is a connector. They are really the person who brings, I remember when I was crushing it and I had a CEO that was a partner. It wasn't like first, second in command, right?
Yep.
But we were partners and we had very different skills and we did so much leading together. And yet he was the CEO, he was the ultimate responsibility for the company, but we were actually really true partners. And what I loved about being a COO is I could be in a meeting, for example, with the marketing team, and then I could later be in a meeting with product and say, oh, wait, I heard the marketing team is working on this.
Exactly.
Let's bring into a good, but I also experienced a couple, because I've been a COO several times, I experienced instances where some team members absolutely do not want a COO, and the value of a COO, especially if you're going to do major layoffs early in, is, wow, should we pay the salary for a COO? Do we really need that one? No, we probably don't. We'll go ahead and get rid of this and have the other roles. And I think that's the short-sighted of people who don't really understand that if you have someone who can be in all those conversations well and think and shift in those mindsets, the power it will portray or lead into the company long-term is huge.
I love that. I think that's exactly right. And you can also clean up a lot of things before they even happen. I mean, the misunderstanding between departments, the they said this, but it meant that. Like, no, 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 no. Same goals, same company. We're all working together. Everybody has a seat at the table, and you can clean that up so quickly. Versus, at the end when you're like, what went wrong? You don't have to get to the what went wrong. You can get right ahead of it. So I
I
agree.
love it.
I think it's a great thing to do with your career.
Okay, so you have, and we already listed in the intro that you helped lead GreatCall, which you'll have to tell us what GreatCall was. But
Yep.
from pre-revenue to an acquisition by Best Buy for 800 million. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
I know how hard that journey is. And so you've led through that startup chaos as well as high stakes acquisition. I think that counts as that.
Yeah.
And big corporate shifts, right? Because when you do that acquisition, then you have those merger and acquisition challenges. So take us back and just for a moment, what was a moment in your career where you realized, hey, I'm no longer just managing, I'm now leading this force?
Yeah, I love this question because it forced me to look back and think. I was talking to one of my colleagues, and we had done so. We were VC owned when I started. We did sell to private equity, and then we sold to
And
Best
so
Buy.
for some of our listeners who don't
Yep.
know what VC is, real quick, can you say also what the difference? So describe what that is, but
Yep.
also say what the difference is between VC and private equity.
Okay, I'll do my definition. I'm sure there are better ones
Yes.
out there, but from my perspective, with Great Call, which we were the makers of the Jitterbug phone, so the phone for seniors, and the company was
Oh,
focused on technology for the senior population. So incredible mission-driven company, but um, really helped millions of people have better lives. So it was a great company. But when I started VC owned is chaos. You might have some money and you've started. Usually there was a founder in this case. And she went and raised, with my current CEO, went and raised $80 million dollars to get the company started, get it on
did
its
you just
feet.
say 80? Did you just say 80
Yes,
million
$80,
dollars?
$80 million dollars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And for listeners, if
Um,
you don't know, like that's not inconsequential. And so that's from venture capitalists, which is what the
exactly.
VC stands for. An $80
Exactly.
million raise is huge.
So huge raise over a couple of years, and David Inns, the CEO, was instrumental in doing that. I joined around that time, so venture capital just trying to establish recurring revenue as a recurring revenue business, which means you know every month more or less what's coming in. Your cost of acquisition is high to go get your customers, but then you have this recurring revenue. So we're building a challenging model. We're building a challenging time because it was an MVNO, which means that you're reselling minutes from Verizon at the time to put this simple phone
Oh.
out into the market. And then we grew it into a whole health and safety company from there. So venture capital owned for a long time. It was hard to exit because we pivoted the company from a traditional MVNO to a healthcare related company. We did several acquisitions in the meantime. And then we did exit, I believe, at 425 million to a private equity firm called
Okay.
GTCR. And private equity means that you now have positive EBITDA, you have recurring revenue, you have a solid business model. And the private equity investors believe that with some of their assistance, maybe with some cash infusion, maybe with some other things, you can really grow this company. Like you're ready to go. So you are in the next stage of your company. Now, for us, remarkably, we were only with them a little bit over a year because then Best Buy approached us and said, we're actually interested in acquiring your business. So we had a wild couple of years, right? So getting
Wow.
ready to sell the company, getting ready to sell the
Yeah.
company to private equity, having a successful sale. We loved our partners. And then having the opportunity now to sell and work with Best Buy, which when we got the phone call, we're like, really? Oh, okay. So we pivoted again. You're running the business, you're selling the business. And then we exited with Best Buy. And then I ended up staying 4 more years with Best Buy. So it was the ride of a lifetime. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. And today that company, the name is changed to Lively, and it's owned by Best Buy Health, which is a division of Best Buy, and it continues without us. So I'm going back to what the question was, and I think it was about when I realized I was leading. In the middle of all of that, after we bought one of the healthcare companies and prior to be owned by private equity, one of my new colleagues said to me, I think you're a really great leader. And that sounds so innocuous. And I literally stopped in my tracks and I was like, I'm a leader? And I had thought of myself as a lawyer. I had thought of myself as a professional. I had thought of myself as a doer and a worker and everything else. But I'd never stopped to think, oh, I'm now a leader. It just had never occurred to me. And I'm so grateful that he did say that because it really changed my mindset is, well, okay, if that's my role now, what am I doing to do that well? What am I doing to further that? And up until that moment, I was just doing all the things. And so I think I have an intuitive leadership style, so maybe I was getting away with it. But that's when I pivoted to realizing, okay, if you're going to be a leader, you need to make sure you know how to do that. You're learning from other people. You're doing it thoughtfully. You have a vision for it. And so it was a big pivot in my mindset.
Oh my gosh, I love that story. So tell me then, thinking about this, what is in your mind when people talk about a manager versus a leader? I don't want to say a true leader, right? Because I think both roles can be appropriate at certain times depending on how you define it. And
Yeah.
everyone defines it differently. So I'm always curious, amazing leaders, how they define what they believe the difference between being a manager and a leader is.
Yeah, I think you can be a manager with or without being a leader at the same time. So to me, a manager is a person who drives results, checking off boxes, implementing the company's vision in whatever his or her role is, and potentially has some people working for them and making sure they're all doing that. A leader is someone who's doing that thoughtfully, with purpose, with a vision, and with making sure they're building up their employees. So I think that's the difference. You can have employees or you can develop employees. And I think when you add the leadership to manager, first of all, it's a lot more rewarding, but it also makes a huge shift in the company. That's when things really change. So that for me is the difference between those two.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit then about you've transitioned to a couple of different areas, right? You've talked about tech and then healthcare, of course, manufacturing. That was a piece of
Right.
this. And I've talked to some people and they've said, oh, well, yeah, you can be a great leader in this area, but you don't understand this area. And being a great leader is very different. What do you think? And first off, I disagree with that statement.
Yeah.
But I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think is constant across varying industries when you look at leadership and being a great, or dare we say, badass leader?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I really believe strongly that you have to be an expert in the business. And that doesn't mean, if I first suddenly was starting to run finance, that I need to know accounting rules, because I'm not going to know that. But I do need to know the business. How do we make money? How does each part of this company come together to create this thriving business? So whatever your role is, whoever you are, whatever you're leading, you need to know how it works. Not get in there. I mean, yeah, if you're running a manufacturing, yeah, go to the site. Maybe you're not the person putting things in boxes, but maybe you do it one day so that you really understand how everything works in your business. So I think expertise and being an expert in your business, knowing how the business makes money, fundamental, first thing. Second thing, you need to have a vision. You can't just do the job. You have to have a vision for it. Maybe you don't have it on day one. Maybe it takes some time. It doesn't have to be an earth-quaking, shaking vision, but it needs to be a vision, like a purpose. Why are you the leader in this company at this time? What do you want to have left behind when you're done being that leader? I think a lot of people just don't ever do that part. And I think it's important. And then third, I think you have to connect with your employees. And I think you have to inspire your employees. And if you do all of those things together, I think you're a great leader. And you don't have to do it the same way. So I do it in my fashion. As I was saying, the CEO, David Inns, I worked with, did it completely in a different fashion, like you talked about. We worked together. If you see Corey Berry, who's the current CEO at Best Buy, she's doing it too, but she's doing it in her own way. But those three things I think are constant for all great leaders. I'm sure there are others,
I
but those are the ones that are important to me.
Yeah. I love your focus in the very beginning about understanding the industry because I think that it parlays into the other pieces of it. How can you really create a vision and how can you inspire your team around that vision if you don't understand what success looks like? And you
Yeah,
can't understand what success looks like unless you get in the nitty gritty and you're in there and you see what's happening. You see the impact it's making. You learn what the obstacles and what the challenges are. And so you have an understanding because I've seen managers, leaders come in who know nothing and make no effort to understand
right.
any of it. And they just think, oh, I'm going to be a leader in this one area. I don't need to understand the rest of that. And I think that goes back to being a manager, or you might be following steps or saying we're going to get these deliverables, but you're never going to get that vision, that inspiration, and really get everyone around you.
So many of my employees have this nightmare story. They tell me when they came in to show me something or do something, and I'd be like, well, why? Like, what is the thing behind that? And they were just like, and they just look at you and they're just dumbfounded. And I'm like, well, how could you come to that conclusion without knowing these three things? And they all share that story now and they look back and laugh, but they all do it now. Now they all know. So whether that was an attorney who came in or an HR person or an operational person, and they came to a conclusion without any data or understanding of the why behind it. And so I think that deep expertise is from day one. And one of the things I'm super proud of that we did at GreatCall is even when we were close to 2,000 employees, every employee that came through orientation in the corporate office and even at the call centers, the CEO and I would go down to the corporate office and one of us would model on the whiteboard how this company makes money and how
Oh, I
you
love
in
this.
your role contribute to that from day one. And I
Oh,
just,
I love this so much. And I have to say, I just interviewed Daniel Steer, and he and I were talking about he is the host of the podcast Make Work Not Suck, which by the way is an amazing
um,
podcast.
I'm
I
downloading
love.
that.
Yeah, you have to download it. I've
Yeah.
binged it. It is absolutely amazing. It's a great title for a podcast as well. And we were talking about he had an episode. He and his co-host Ryan had a recent episode that was on basically BS jobs.
Mm,
People who don't understand exactly what you were just saying, right? Because we talk
right.
about the distance between the work that you do and the true customer who's going to benefit and the longer that distance is, the harder it is for that team member to understand their job is not BS. It's really
That's
critical
right.
for one reason or the other. And I love this exercise. I mean, listeners, seriously, if you should have
Do this.
all of your
Do this.
leaders do this.
Yes.
Go in and say, tell me today how my role actually, what the cascade impact is. That is amazing.
Yeah, no, I was really proud of that, and we kept that going. And then in the call centers where you'd bring in 20 people at a time, we didn't always go and do it, but somebody did. So no matter what your role is at this company, you understand how the company makes money and you understand your part of it. So yes, everyone borrow that one, please.
Yes, please, please. That will one of the goals of this podcast. People say, "Why are you doing one?" Like, surely, how many times can you talk about leadership? And of course,
Right.
I could talk about leadership every single day. And secondly, is you get these amazing, brilliant things that should be a part of the future. And much of the individuals who watch this podcast are between like the ages of 25 and about 45, that bracket. So our future up and coming leaders and giving them these ideas. And if we're going to make the world a better place, and as Daniel's trying to do, Daniel and Ryan, make work not suck. Key things like that are huge.
Love it.
So one of the things that I want to peel back to kind of your version of the 5 whys. Your team member comes in and they give you the statement and you're asking them why. And I think it also ties to the ability to solve complex problems, which I
Mhm.
know you are really passionate about. So let's dig into this and tell me a little bit more about your philosophy around that.
Yeah, so I think people come to complex problems and they want complex solutions. And especially at big companies, they want solutions that will take a long time. And I think it's just because people want to stay employed. And so they're like, oh, let's have a long solution to this problem. And I'm like, okay, this is a complex problem. So let's break it down into parts that we can solve, and let's simplify the solution. So my best example is at Best Buy Health. We had purchased a company, and then we realized after a year or so that there were technical issues, customer issues, government regulation issues, lots and lots of issues. And they'd gone and got an outside consulting firm that everyone's heard of, and they came back with literally a 2-year, $10 million solution to this problem.
Oh, wow.
And the president at the time came to me and told me all this, and she said she was going to ask someone else to fix it. And I said, okay. And I said, hey, I don't think that's it. I think there's a simple solution. And she was like, oh, you do? And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's right.
But we
But you're
just
giving
hired this really well-known consulting
really
agency that
well-known
told us
consulting
this.
company, and you're gonna go a different direction, so it's good, right? Well, it didn't work out with the person that she thought was going to be in charge of solving the solution, and so she came back to me and she said, well, you think it's simple, will you do it? And I said, I will, but here's my criteria. I want a 6-month timeline. We're going to do this in 6 months. I don't want the outside consultant. I want a hand-picked team of people here within the company to help me. And it was about 10 at the most of these people that I needed. And then I want each of those people to get a bonus, which doesn't usually happen because she was going to offer me a bonus. But I was like, no.
Right.
I want this team who's going to take this on in addition to their normal work to be bonused. And from the low-level person who's going to do the coordination to the higher-level person, I want everyone taken care of. And so we set up weekly meetings. We got the team together. She gave me the room to do this, which was nice. We met with the C-level team at Best Buy once a month. Like, it was a big deal. It was a big spotlight on it. And we finished it under 6 months. We ended up we took the whole time, but we were done. And
Wow.
And we did it without the outside consultant, and we cleaned it up, and we bonused everyone on the team, and that doesn't happen very often in that type of world. So the money that we would have paid, we took a fraction. I think we did under $2 million in 6 months, and that $2 million included the bonuses for the employees.
For all the listeners that you can rewind if you want to listen to just a second ago, but the consultant said 2 years, $10 million.
Yes.
And Lynn and her team did it in less than 6 months and probably $2 million, a fifth of the cost, and motivated people, and they were more empowered.
Right. And the 2 million portion went to them, right? Like, instead of giving it out to someone else. And listen, this was an example of leadership. I set the tone. I said, this is how I want to set it up. This is how I want to do it. This is the timeline. This is what we want to achieve. And this is how simplicity works, right? This is what we're trying to achieve at the end. Let's work backwards. Don't get distracted by this extra thing and this other thing. No, we're trying to achieve this thing today in this project. We'll keep a list of the things we want to do later. But this is what we're doing. So let's build it backwards. How many people do you need? What kind of cadence do we need, etc. Now, the team was amazing, right? They did the work. But the leadership is having the vision, setting it up, putting the incentive in place, and then keeping everybody accountable. So that's kind of my most recent example of just taking something complex, breaking it down, getting to a solution. I think other people, like, sometimes I just think people think if you make it bigger and more complex, that it's better. I don't know why. The outside consultants just want to be paid, I think. But also the people inside the company sometimes think the bigger and the more exciting it is, the better for their careers. I'm not sure. At GreatCall, our biggest problem was the call centers. Most of the company was based on customer service. It was based on, we want you to call us all the time. We will answer the phone 24 hours a day. We also had a product for if you had fallen. So we also were an emergency response center 24 hours a day. And we were cycling through people like crazy, like every other call center in the country. Cycling through people. And the answer was, for the leadership that was there, was always like, oh, the next hiring class, and the next hiring class, and the next hiring class. And it was bringing down all the economics of the company. Like, we couldn't move forward. And so when the CEO eventually asked me to take that over, which is how I eventually become the COO, I said, I'll do it, but I have to do it differently. Like I can't keep doing it the way that we're doing this. And I'm like, we're doing it the way every other company is doing it, and it's not working. That's why they're offshoring people. We don't want to offshore anybody.
No,
Um,
no. I cringe when I hear call center because of
I,
that. And
I'm
also, I
telling
believe you
you,
never outsource your core competency. And if customer support and experience is a core competency, outsourcing it is never a good idea.
absolutely. And I'm super passionate about this, and I'm so frustrated with what I'm seeing in the world right now. And I hope it boomerangs back. And when it does, be ready to help people do this. But you can insource and run an efficient call center in California, because we did. And then we had one in Reno, and then we had one in San Antonio, and then we had one in Michigan. So we did lots of it. Um, but we had to fundamentally break it down and change everything about how we ran that. I'm happy to go into that, but I don't know if your listeners are interested. And that was the most complex problem, other than product, which other people were dealing with,
Right.
that we had. And it just meant going in, looking at it with different eyes, willing to take some risk. My CEO was willing to support me, and doing it differently. So, and that's again, that's what gets me excited at
I
work.
think a lot of turnover that I see in those types of roles, customer facing with people who call in and are often angry, frustrated, tired, they don't
Right.
understand and they're also used to shitty call centers.
That's right.
Like I
You
don't know.
already call with attitude because you already have
Yeah,
attitude
exactly.
because you have to
And
call.
hear that, yeah. And that
Yeah,
team member has to then have a mindset or a level of resilience or a level of compassion or empathy or whatever it is to be able to basically change the whole tone of a conversation to
that's
make
right.
it a good experience. I mean, I will tell you this. This is funny. I've had so nightmare experiences. I'm going to go ahead and call the company out with Xfinity.
Uh,
And I just got a new Garmin watch, so I'm going to take my Apple Watch and give it to my daughter. And it's an Apple Watch that has a cell plan. So I'm
yep.
doing like ChatGPT. How do I move it? And then it says you'll have to most likely call your and God, I wanted to puke. I just said to my daughter, I can't do it today. Like I can't handle calling them today and
I know.
dealing with someone I don't even understand.
I know. I know. And so for us, add to that I always said, if we're yelling at our customers, that's a good sign because our customers can't hear very well. So we literally would have to raise our voices. So now we have an older population that doesn't love calling anyway, most of them feel, I'm going to use the quote, dumb because they don't know how to use the product, even though we're like, no, 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 that's what we're here for. And
Right.
then maybe have some dexterity issues, maybe have some hearing issues, maybe have some vision issues, etc. So there's many things we did, but one of the things is everyone that we hired was smart, caring, and collaborative. Those were our values. Are you smart, caring, and collaborative? And then once you come here, we're going to hold you to that standard. Everyone went through senior sensitivity training. And this is even our
Oh,
corporate office. So it's like
yes.
an hour-long session. You wear gloves so you can understand the dexterity issues. We have glasses so you can understand the vision issues. You have headphones so you can understand the hearing issues. You do some exercises where you're like counting out pills, and now you can see that once your lens is yellow, you can't see the different colors and you can't count. So everyone already understood where our customers were in their stage of calling us. So that's a huge part of it. And then what really shifted everything is we had, 15% turnover a month and ended up getting it down to under 2% was really changing the centers themselves and making them caring centers, not calling centers. And that meant we had really nice furniture. Everybody had sit stand station. We had a beautiful environment. We paid people to work out during the day. So you could work out on company time because we really believed in wellness for ourselves and for our customers. And we were letting people do that at the corporate office. So why wouldn't we do that there? Every day in the afternoon, a member of leadership would push around a snack cart with a healthy snack and say thank you. That's a big deal. Nobody says
That
thank
is a
you.
huge deal.
Nobody says thank you. And what I really
Yeah.
wanted, and the CEO and I were there all the time. We knew everybody by name. We had all hands meetings where everybody was, I mean, it was really for them. And we talked about the business and the good and the bad. And so, real, and there are traditionally these terrible attendance policies at call centers. And I was like,
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Like if my kid is sick and I'm half an hour late, nobody gives me a point. So now we're going to take people who are in the most challenging of situations in their homes and we're going to punish them all the time. And so we kind of introduce this concept of life happens, and you get some points just to throw away for life happens. Just like it does for me, it should for you as well. And then shifts, like these changing shifts all the time. Like every 6 months, they do a shift bid based on how long you've been there. And I'm like, who is this person who's available Monday through Friday during the day, but 6 months later is available at night? Like, what are we doing to these people's lives?
That's insane.
That's
Yes,
insane.
exactly.
And also rewarding the person who's been here for the longest, not always the best idea, right? Because the people who come in the beginning are energized, etc. So I said to the leader, and I went and found a really good leader to come in. And I said, hey, like, let's get rid of the shift bid. And he was like, you are crazy. What? Like, that's how people
I'm
get
trying
their
to figure out how you
roles.
managed to get people to agree to sign up to always be on night shift.
Well, I said, let's just ask people when they want to work. And he's like, well, everybody will want to work at the same time. And I'm like, no, they won't. Some people are going to school during the day. Some people are this. Some people, right? Like, we pay more at night. We pay, like, I mean, there's reasons for people. So we had everybody fill it out. And honestly, everybody fit into their spot. And then if something opened up, you could make a move if things changed in your life. But you no longer, and even when we hired, we said you would be hired into this shift versus you have to be available 24 hours a day. Like, are you available for the shift? And then things change in your life. I mean, there's always people coming and going and changing, etc. We never did a shift bid again. Did it make
Wow.
leadership's job harder? Probably, but did it make for a more cohesive place where you're not going to leave for another 25 cents or 50 cents or $1 an hour because you've got a place that people are invested in you and care about you and
And
you're
they say thank you.
oh yeah, and you're doing mission driven work and you're changing
Right.
lives. And everybody who worked for us cared for an older person in their lives. I mean, you just didn't even come to work there if you didn't have a relationship with an older person in your life. Like that was number one.
So, did you ever do the math on how much money you actually ended up saving? Because I can hear some people listening to this and saying, "Oh my gosh, standing desks are expensive. Going around the snack cart is expensive. Like all these things, and they're like racking up the cost."
Yeah.
But I heard you say you cut down your
Once you
turnover from
bring down the
15% to
turnover,
two
yeah,
percent, and that's
that's it.
huge.
Pays for everything and it leaves you extra money. So I
Way
didn't
extra money.
way extra money. I didn't ever add it up, but like way extra money. So that is also the time that we shifted right from as right as the VC or as the private equity firm came in, and as we went from a 425 million to $800 million valuation. And do I have the exact numbers? I don't, but this
I would
was
love to see the case study on that.
I know we should do it. I should get all my old finance guys together. Yeah, but this was
Yeah.
the center of the company. And so when this ran smoothly, it was the biggest expense, obviously. And when it ran smoothly, then everything just followed. So it was, yeah, it was amazing. I mean, it was remarkable to be able to do this. But yeah, you're not hiring recruiters, you're not hiring outside people, you're not spending all your manager's time interviewing people over and over and over again, which is mind numbing. I mean, we're just basically before we were just chasing, bringing in, losing, and you're losing expertise all the time. So now the people on the calls are much more efficient. So now your call time's going down. So now you can take more calls. So it all just rolls together. And you're right, I should do a case study on it because it would be great to show, especially as people keep offshoring and then everyone's having terrible, terrible, terrible experience. So
Right?
yeah,
Because I don't want other people. I mean, here I am a 50-year-old, highly technical woman. And just the idea of trying to get Xfinity to change a phone number to my daughter's, to my Apple Watch, to hers, and connect
yeah,
that, it's delayed doing it for
it
several
is.
days.
The
And
other
I'm
thing is,
not
the other thing
a
to keep in mind
95-year-old
is,
grandmother.
yeah, the other thing to keep in is most companies don't necessarily fix their technology to do those things smoothly. So it all falls on these poor people that answer the phone.
Yes.
And so that was the other thing now that I'm remembering. We really closed the loop between the product and the issues. And so I mandated that the tech team go to the call center, which was just down the street, at least once a month. Sit down with the representatives. This was another thing. We gave them power, and they'll tell you what's wrong. And then you need to go fix it. And before, there was no connection between those two things, or there was a person sharing. But when you go, and I was like, don't just go talk to them, go listen to the calls.
Yes.
And then when you hear the issues on the calls, you know what to do in the next product. You know how to fix this product. You know what the problem is because it all just rolls downhill. So what we did is push some of it back up. And now you're working as a team, right? Now you feel heard. Like I took these calls, the same issue came up 10 times. Now I got to tell the head engineer, and now he or she can go fix it. That also is a really big part of our cycle.
So a couple of the key things I'm hearing is that you focused on hiring the right people that
Right.
fit into the need of it. You then showed them appreciation and gratitude and gave them an environment so they could be successful. You then empowered them to be collaborators in solutions to reduce the challenges of the future so they really felt like all of their work was making an impact.
Yeah, that's it. And we took the fear out of the system. It was a fear-based system before. Now
Oh,
you
let's talk
learn.
about fear-based system.
Yeah,
I want to talk about fear-based system. So
yeah.
what is your definition of a fear-based system?
Fear-based system is that you're always in this environment is you're always worried about saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, and you don't feel fully comfortable in the role that you're in. And that actually can be in any job, right? Where you're never authentic. You are constantly worried that someone is going to watch you and criticize you, and that you never can just sit down and be comfortable. And that's how it
And I
was,
think
right?
yeah. I'm trying to think. Can you think of some other examples where you've seen fear-based systems for listeners who aren't talking about call
I
centers?
mean, the law firm is a fear-based system.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, God, you're just always worried you're not good enough, that you're not doing enough work, that you're not doing enough hours, that you're not doing the right work, that you're not working with the right partner, that you're not this, that you're not that, you're not this. And when I left the law firm, it was amazing. Like, I don't know, 3 days after I left, I was like, all that noise is gone. I don't even care what Joe so and so thinks of me upstairs anymore. But until then, always trying to, because you want to become partners, so you have to get a partner to support you. So what does this partner think? Does that partner want you on their deal? Does it not want? Like it's just this constant noise in your head. So that was very much a fear-based system.
I think it is often companies, which there are way too many of them, who all they are focused on are the results and the numbers. That's it. And not focused on the people. So when you see that situation,
Yep,
then they're driven, and maybe they're focused on the numbers and whatnot because that's what the VC, the venture capitalist, is drilling into them, or
that's
the
right.
private equity, or the stock market price for theirs after they've IPO'd. But when you get to the moment where you're constantly just driving, and I'm not saying that those things are not important, right? You need to make
100%.
money and keep the business running. However, when you get to the point where that is a key focus of every decision being made and you forget the humanity and the human, then people react to that and have fear of not fulfilling that and don't feel as if they can actually be human.
That's right. And I think, again, we wanted to make money, we wanted to exit, we wanted to do all those things, but recognizing that it's the humans that are going to get you to that outcome is really, really important. And I tell you, my biggest fear is that we're going to go back to the Jack Welch system of like ranking people and getting rid of the bottom. Like, I feel like that's where corporate America is heading. And it scares me because it's not good. And it may drive some short term results, but I think it's been proven it doesn't drive long term results. And I mean, people spend most of their time at work. Why do you have to be miserable at work? We had so much fun at work, and that's part of every
Yes.
time we get together with groups, they're like, oh my God, we had so much fun. We had so much fun and we worked
A
so
third of your
hard.
life is working. So,
Yeah. And
as Daniel and his partner will say.
yeah, and I raised three kids at the same time and they're all doing well. So like it can all happen together. And I don't know why people are so resistant to that. Like it really can all happen together.
I love your reference to the Jack Welch thing. I believe it's Simon Sinek who talks about this a lot,
Mm,
like how he just got it so wrong. And the reality is, there are people like yourself, myself, Simon Sinek, and some of us and Daniel Steer, and people that are passionate about doing everything we can to not go back to those days because we as humans deserve so much more than that. And we
yeah.
can accomplish so much. It's not this entitled thing like we're wimps or whatever. No, we can accomplish so much more when we're not in that mindset. And I want that to be a part of my legacy. And I
I
can
agree.
tell by the look on your face that you want it to be a part of yours. But speaking of that, let's talk about mergers and acquisitions
Yeah.
because that can be so hard, a culture shift where now you're coming in, a company has bought you. I have seen, just coming from entrepreneurship, I have seen so many startup founders who then cringe about, like, don't screw up my culture, don't screw up my team. And that's really hard not to do. So, and I know that you have worked in this space several times. So tell us some of the things that you've seen that were great and maybe a few that were not so awesome.
Well, first, I think we could do an entire podcast on it because it's another
We
area that needs to be
could.
explored. But in fact, my former colleague, Sarana Peterson, and I, we actually do a presentation on this. And it's what gets missed in an acquisition. And it's always the people strategy, always. And it's what crushes every acquisition, right? There are very few that are successful. The outside consultants we talked about earlier, really good at putting together a plan, and there's the numbers people are really good at the number of people, and it's all put together, and no one gets the people strategy right. So I think we learned a lot. So we bought a couple small companies along the way, and then we had this big purchase of us by Best Buy, and there's so many things I would do differently, and I think everyone did their best. Like, I think they did their best. We did our best. Everybody was well intentioned. We went in with, we want you to keep your company exactly the same way you are. We think that's what's special about you. Your meaningful work culture is why we're buying this guy, blah, 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 blah. And then no one can help themselves. I mean, there wasn't bad intent. It's just that I'm not sure everyone at all the levels below gets the message. And so it's not the leadership that's not on the same page. It's all the people below, because now, no matter how you look at it, you're fighting for turf. And the people at Best Buy only knew the Best Buy way, and we only knew our way, and we were both certain our ways were the best. And nobody was really there to get the people strategy right. So I always say, like, if you're being acquired, here's my advice as a person: build your network immediately. Get to know people in the new company. You are not going to get, and maybe the most extreme case, you're not going to stay the little company that you were, right? Like, you need to learn how the new company works. You need to find an ally. You need to find people that you can talk to. You need to create a plan. You have to invest in yourself. What is it that you don't know how to do that all the people in this new company know how to do? For us, it was the simplest of things. We didn't do many PowerPoints, and we didn't do a lot of presenting, and they were mad experts at it. Like, we were like, wow, how does one do that? Their whole culture was about the PowerPoint and how you present, et cetera, et cetera. We were woefully behind. So I started sending all my people to get trained and to learn, because you couldn't hold your own in a meeting. So silly thing, but it made a big difference. Um, Also, you need to figure out how you can be comfortable and be part of this culture. And I think I really resisted that for a long time. And I ended up staying 4 years, and I was welcome to stay. Like, they were very good to me. And I could have stayed. For me, it wasn't the right environment to keep growing in, but I wish I had maybe a lot earlier come to their way of doing things, because you need to accept the fact that you are now a part of them. As one of my friends said, they didn't steal you, they paid for it. And I thought that was a very good point. But if you're the acquirer, maybe acknowledge the experience and appreciate what this new company is bringing to you, because that doesn't always happen. Also make connections, like, understand these people, understand their business. Don't assume you know it. Learn, become an expert, be an advocate for them, and then be empathetic. So I think if on those two sides people did those things, the people part would work better. But I really think it's important to understand the motivations of the people on both sides, the expectations of people on both sides, and then understand the worries on both sides. So the acquirer is like, am I going to lose my job because these new people came in? They also might be annoyed. The new people got all this money for equity, and I've been working at this company for 20 years. That's annoying. I get it. On the other side, people are like, well, where do I fit in? How can I be part of this? Will they appreciate me? There was automatically the whole, well, if you're a director at GreatCall, you're only manager level at Best Buy. Is that true? Was that true? Is that right? But both sides came in fire on fire, right? The directors at GreatCall
Right.
are like, no, we are the same as you. And the people over here were certain that you were a level below. So I think the people strategy, I think you should invest in help for that, and nobody does. I think you should have people specifically working on that. I don't think you can put a person in charge from the acquirer and expect everyone to just get in line. I don't think you can do it the other way either. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done there.
I think it ties to one of the core values of the AGN group is we believe in getting to understand humans as humans. And that's a lot of what you were walking through. Like I'm coming into a new company. I really, instead of making a whole bunch of assumptions about what everyone at the old company or the pre-existing company is thinking about me or whatnot, actually taking the time to get to know them as human beings. Like, what are they
Exactly.
excited about? What are their passions? What are their fears? What do they love about their job? What are some things they maybe don't love about their job? And there might be some shifts that are made there that tie to it. But if you don't have, I love the idea of having someone that's, maybe we could come up with a title for this role, like a human. I don't know. I don't know
I
what
don't know
the
because we have to get the
real
title right. Because if you get the title wrong, it doesn't work. So I don't know what that title is.
So listeners, go ahead and put in the comments. Tell
Well,
us what
I
you
actually
think.
think, especially for the leaders, like coaches should be invested in to work with them together. Like you need outside executive coaches to help you because you're not going to do it well on your own.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I also believe there's a difference between the management consulting people and coaches. And I would say
Exactly.
that hiring a coach is someone whose success looks like getting those pieces of this and helping people integrate and collaborate and overcome conflict and all these things well versus just a strategy. And there's nothing wrong with management consulting.
You
I'm
need
just
both.
saying that I think that there are places for each of them, and having coaches, I think, is a great idea. So let's talk about this because we've talked a little bit about culture. And I know one challenge is that sometimes the culture of the new company coming in is very different from the culture of the existing company. But
Yes.
you've said yourself that culture sells companies.
Yep.
So, given that, what do you think the top signals are that you look for to know if culture is working or if it's rotting from the inside?
For any company, like when you're
Any
talking
company,
to a
go
company,
for it. Yep.
ask how decisions are made.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because you can have a lot. Well, you can have a lot of nice things on the wall, right? We empower employees, we this, with that. If all decisions
Right.
are made from top down, then that culture doesn't work, right? So that is when I'm interviewing and if I'm going to join a team, et cetera, like that's what I want to know. How are decisions made? Is it truly collaborative? Does it just say collaborative or is it collaborative? Like we had, so ours were smart, caring, collaborative. And we took the CEO, we were having some debate about something, a bunch of us, and he said, okay, well, let's take a vote. And he lost the vote. And he's like, I just lost. And we're like, uh-huh, okay, moving on. He's like, wait, don't I get extra votes? And we're like, no, you
No.
said let's take a vote. We're a collaborative environment. And he held it. He let us move forward, and that was the vote. So that's when you know a culture is working, right? But if you have all those things and then the CEO's let's take a vote, and then the CEO's like, well, I'm going to do it anyway because this is what I want to do, I think that's a problem.
I think a
Um,
lot of times the CEO is terrified to say, let's take a vote because they're fearful the
they
vote's
might
not going to
lose.
go their way,
I
right?
know.
And
It's,
and they're just like, thank you for all the feedback that you've given. We will consider it all and then we will make a decision.
right.
AKA, I'm making the decision and really not considering your feedback.
That's right. And that I think happens in a lot of companies, and that's a rotten culture to me. The other thing I'm really careful about is so when I ask for feedback and I ask for things, I say, I may not agree with you and I may not do it, but I promise you I'll tell you why. And that I think solves that problem, by the way. Like people just want to know why. And you don't have to agree with
Yep.
me, but now you know why I came to that conclusion. So I also think if people are reciting things that the company, like if there's just these mantras and people say these things over and over again that the company wants you to say, and then you ask the follow-up question of like, why does that exist? Or give me an example of that. Like at one of the companies, the person was like, well, I mean, that's us on our best day. And I was like, sorry, these values are on your
I want to
best
know your
day?
worst day. Right.
And I was like,
No.
no, no, I want your every day. So I think that's when you know, like, this isn't as genuine as I mean, it's nice. It's nice to want to live on your best day, but like, we're going to be here every day. So let's talk about what that looks like. So that's kind of
Yeah,
my thoughts on
values are not, I believe that values are not made for best days. Values are
that's right.
created to help guide in the most challenging moments. So they are
100%.
meant to be your baseline for those hard days so that you can take a step back and say, okay, what values do we have to help guide us and navigate through this to what we want success to look like?
That's 100% right. Because that's when it's real.
I also love the comment that you said about feedback, because I think too in feedback, when you encourage people to give feedback and then you actually receive it versus just immediately being defensive on it, and I see that as a big struggle with poor cultures. But let's talk about within that conflict resolution and what you've seen, especially in these high stake acquisitions and making companies successful.
Yeah. So, well, I'll give you the craziest thing that happened. I think one of the craziest things that happened at GreatCall. So we had an all hands meeting in Reno. So 500 people in the room. We did nice all hands meetings, and the tech team had put together a presentation, and the presentation was like, everything's great. We just put out a new phone. Everything's great. And we got up and gave that presentation. And then we always kept it open for questions. And we just let people on the spot come up and ask questions. Well, this like line started forming of these 500 people. We're actually in one of the casinos there in Reno, because you could have a whole
So they're lining up behind the microphone to
they're
ask
lining up
questions,
behind my
right?
phone. I'm like, oh, this is good. And and this first woman gets up, and it's the customer service people, and she's like, I mean, she used some language, but she was like, what is going on here? She's like, what do you mean? The product sucks. People are calling. Like, she was so outraged, and as were all the 50 people behind her. And I always laugh because honestly, it was me and my 5 male colleagues, and they all like stood behind me. Like, they all just disappeared. And I took a step forward, and I was like, okay, sounds like we got it wrong, and it sounds like you guys have some feedback, and we want it. So, Chris, you're there in the front. Grab pad of paper and a pen, and we're going to listen to all of them, and we're going to write them all down, and I'm going to get back to you on every single one of them. And I said, and if I don't agree with it, it's a problem. I'm going to tell you it's not a problem, and if I think I'm going to let you know. And it went an hour, and we let every person say their thing,
I
and
love this.
I was really proud of it because I could have shut it down, and you never
Yeah.
know what you're going to do in that moment. I mean, it was like, the lights are on you and you're sweating. And Chris wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and then we finished the meeting, and then we had this list. I mean, it's like a long list of things, and we published the list, and we created a follow-up, and until we took care and resolved every single thing on that list. And there were things that they're like, well, the sales team is doing that. I'm like, the sales team is actually not doing that. I've investigated that. It's not happening. So it wasn't like, oh, we'll just do whatever you want. But, and we kept the next meeting open for questions. So it wasn't like I shut it down going forward. And from then on, before every meeting, we did a survey. What do you want to talk about? Versus us thinking that we know what you want to talk about.
Right,
So
right.
all that to say that conflict resolution for me, you meet it head on, and you call it out. And if it's two people that can't agree, I had an HR team and an operations team that were battling all the time. It's like, let's get in a room and let's work this out, and let's be open and honest about it. Like, you're saying that, but what you're actually doing behind the scenes is this. And you're saying this, but what you're actually doing is that. So we're going to stay here, and we trust each other and we like each other enough that we're going to figure this out. And then if we can't, we're going to have to make some tough choices. But early on at GreatCall, we were sitting in the room, and I finally just looked up and I was like, is there a secret prize I don't know about? This was like the C-level team at the time. And they're like, huh? And I was like, is there a prize that I'm not aware of? Some secret thing? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, then aren't we all working towards the same goal? What are we doing? Like, this is crazy. So I think we have a
That's
goal.
powerful.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah,
goal,
that's
which is to make some
powerful.
money and to exit and do all these things. And unless we're all going to start working together, now if there's a secret prize, tell me, and then maybe we'll do this differently. But it really like changed the conversation. So I am very direct, but I also have had people come in and tell me things they don't like that are happening, and then we work through it. And sometimes I'm not right, and I'm like, okay, yes, thank you for sharing that. Let's change it. So I think conflict resolution is about actually doing it in the room, but I don't think a lot of people want to do it. I think a lot of people want to talk about it, they will give it some credibility for the moment, and then they go right back to doing the same behavior, right? Because you never really resolved what was underneath it. And
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think that's the key because it's when I talk about conflict resolution, I say, and actually, I think the first time I came up with this analogy was when Vicky interviewed me for her
mm,
podcast. And I said, my idea of the challenges with individuals who aren't willing to have conflict is it's like when you're completing a puzzle and then some people have those, those missing pieces and you hate the
yep,
missing pieces in a puzzle. It drives you insane, right?
right,
Some people, because they're talking like this, they have those missing and they're holding them behind their back, right? And so you might put together something that works
yeah,
and maybe it's acceptable because everyone's used to seeing a puzzle with missing a couple of pieces. We've kind of just been like, whatever. We all know what it is when, the puzzle piece falls on the ground and the dog eats it, that kind of thing.
right.
But if everyone instead comes this way and they put all of those different challenges and those pieces out, then that's the only time you can have truly magical success.
Agreed. Plus, a company is set up to have natural conflict. There is a
Exactly.
conflict between the HR department and the finance department. That is a natural conflict. And the idea is that you build the balance so you get to the right answer together. There is a conflict between the marketing department and the legal department, right? The marketing department wants to say this, the legal department doesn't want to say that. But until you get on the same page, like, what are we actually trying to do? Oh, we're trying to sell to our customers in a safe way. How can we both get to there? Like, those conflicts, and that's why I think the COO role really does kind of manage those natural conflicts. But those conflicts
I
have
agree.
to exist for a business to do well. Because if people don't push back now, are you pushing back for your own personal reasons? That's not helpful. But are you pushing back for actual business purposes? Then yeah, then you're going to get to the right place. Because too much of everybody being on the same page is not particularly helpful either, I think.
I agree. Let's talk about women in leadership because both you and I have come through the ranks of being a female in a typically male dominated space.
Yep.
And despite the fact that times have changed, some things still need to continue to change. What would you say to the young woman, future executive who feels a little underestimated or underappreciated or really struggles with not being heard or some of these types of factors? What would you provide as leadership and guidance and mentorship towards those young future women leaders?
Couple of things. First, get an executive coach. That was life changing for me. Executive coaches help you change the story that you're sure is true in your head. Executive coaches help you not figure out. At first, I was like, oh, executive coach, they're going to tell me all these things I'm wrong or bad at. No, no, no. They're going to help you figure out which areas you want to improve in and which areas you need to improve in to reach your goals, right? So for me, being really direct at my young 20s was not particularly helpful to my career. And I had to learn to say things differently. And then you ultimately get all the things you want, but you have to learn how to fit into this environment. An executive coach can help you figure out why you're doing some of the things you're doing that you don't even realize why you're doing it. So that's number one. And if you can get your company to pay for it, great. And if you're not, and you can find a way to invest in it yourself, you really should.
Absolutely.
Two, get a mentor. And if you're in a male dominant industry, get a male mentor. Like it's
Yes,
their
yes.
game. Learn how to play it from them. I've had so many men teach me how to play the like things I just didn't even realize because I'm only coming at it from another perspective. So I really think that's important. Also look for female leaders, obviously, that inspire you and that will help you along, but look for a male mentor as well. Um, don't get off because it's uncomfortable. I mean, I think a lot of women like it's just uncomfortable, it's not easy, it's hard, etc. When you get to that leadership place, you can change the environment. Until more of us get to that leadership place and have the courage to change the environment's not going to favor working women and then working women, right? Or women with children. That's how we have to change the environment. So at GreatCall, we changed the environment. Everybody worked out during the day. Everybody worked out and it was okay. So that was an important part of being a working person. I live here in San Diego. You can be outside, etc. We started by lifting weights and having an exercise class in between cubicles because we had no money and no place. But
Oh,
we
I love
offered
this.
classes. Yeah, we offered classes. And then I brought in yoga classes because I really believe in yoga. And then, eventually we had a nice office and we built a whole gym. And, it annoyed the hell out of Best Buy that at noon, which was 2 o'clock their time, nobody was available at GreatCall. And it's because it was okay in our culture. And then you would usually just eat lunch at your desk because you would take a 45 minutes, an hour to work out. Some people showered, some people didn't. We all just wore exercise clothes for the rest of the day because who has time to go get gussied up and change and blah, blah, blah. We're working. And then you could go home and that was one less thing you had to do. So that kind of change to the environment or that kind of like women can do that and they get in a place of leadership if this next generation of women, and a lot of them I feel have decided it's just not worth it, then who's going to set up for my daughter? I mean, she's 23. She's just started her corporate career, and we need that environment. So I don't want women to give up. I also don't want women to be in impossible situations where you're having a very difficult time raising children, working. So, like I get it. Every one of our stories is different. The way I did it worked for me, and the way everybody else has to do it is going to work for them. But I truly believe until we change the work environment and make some new things the norms, this is why the Jack Welch thing scares me.
Yep.
Women will have a hard time, will continue to have a hard time thriving. When we did the acquisition, both the PE and the Best Buy acquisition, there was not another woman involved in the law. Like there was not another female lawyer. I was like, what is going on? And I couldn't believe it. And when you do PE, there's so few women in the game. And I wanted to write a book that was like, where are all the women and why am I still here? I don't think anybody would have bet when I started I was the one that was still going to be here. And so we need to
And when you
figure
say
that out.
PE, you mean private equity.
Private equity, sorry. So there
Yep.
and the lawyers were all men, the private equity guys were all men, and they're all great. Great. They were great to me. It was fun. I mean, I had no problem with it. But it was shocking to me because when you graduate from law school, 50%, if not more, are women. And when you start at the law firm, 50%, if not more, are women. And then, like, what happened? Where did everybody go? So I just don't want us to go backwards. And I know COVID was a big step backwards in many ways. And that's why I want to keep being in leadership and keep providing, create companies and have places where women can thrive. And then they can go create that for other people. That's kind of how I see my legacy. Like, let's just keep
I
this
was just
going.
going to ask you about legacy, and you
Yeah.
parlayed into that quite well.
No, thank
So,
you.
so expound on that about leaving a legacy. I strongly believe that right now when I talk to people and when I'm just out in general public, because I am so passionate that we only have one life, one opportunity to be ourselves, and one opportunity to build a legacy, we should make it count. And yet I see so many people who are super frustrated with their lives. They're miserable and they have all these, and they're just angry people. And when you ask them, what do you want your legacy to be? They look at you like you're stupid. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, that makes me sad. We should all
Right.
have what we want. So tell me about yours.
Well, there's the line in Hamilton that legacy is planting seeds in a garden you'll never see grow. And I think that's it for me, right? Like at one point, my colleague was like, "Oh my gosh, these women who've only worked for us, they only know one way. They think this is how it is." So then they can go on and create environments where this is how it is. Like you have, freedom to both work hard and raise a family, and and we're kind to each other, and we have fun at work, and we teach each other. And I mean, I'm very open with the people who work for me, maybe sometimes too open, but I'm like, hey, this is how this decision was reached by this team. And I don't, share things I shouldn't share, but I'm like, you need to understand, because otherwise you're like, how could they have possibly come up with that solution? But you're going to be in that room one day, and I want you to be prepared. And nobody prepared me for that, right? Like that I had to figure out on my own. But we can prepare the next generation. We can tell them what it's really like in the room. We can tell them what we wished we had done differently. We can teach them so that when they walk in, they know how to do this. And that to me is the legacy. Like just spread as many people as you can reach as possible and then encourage them to go do it for others. I saw, Gloria Steinem when I was young was like, oh my gosh, go out there, do all these things. And then I saw her older and she just said, just keep making small changes. They really, really add up. And so I think I really took that from her as well. Let's just keep making these changes and then empower people to feel like they can do that in their next environment. So I think that is how I see my legacy.
I think it's the mindset of like the pebble with the ripple effect,
Yeah,
or the butterfly wings and the butterfly effect. And
exactly.
it's just, you know what? Just make the next best decision that
Yeah.
you can make, and then you will be shocked the impact it can have on people you've never even met, which that's what gives me, I get goosebumps
Me
thinking
too.
about that.
I
Right?
love that. Like that's everything,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
I have to tell this short story. So, I just, speaking of COOs, in my daytime job, I'm managing director of this fund out of Georgia Tech and Emory. And kind of my role is very similar to a CEO role. And I just hired someone who is a serial COO who I've been wanting to hire since 2017. And she's coming in and she's taking on that role. And I'm so excited because we are going to be amazing collaborators. Okay. Well, the coolest thing that happened was she was telling someone that used to work with her that she was taking this role. And that person looked it up and said, wait, who's your manager? And she said, Angela Gil-Nelms. And she goes, oh my gosh, I listened to her podcast.
Oh,
I love her. And
I
she
love
goes,
that.
can you schedule a lunch with us? And I was so humbled. I'm going to get teary eyed right now, right? I was so humbled because I have no idea who this woman was. But the fact that there's some woman out there that's getting inspired by badass leaders such as yourself and myself, right,
Amazing.
is just amazing. And so I want to encourage listeners and people around, think about someone who has made a positive impact in your life that has maybe no idea that you even exist, and reach out to them and
Oh,
tell them, because that absolutely made my day, week, maybe year. I don't know, but
I love that. The first time we sold the company, because I didn't know there were going to be more times, I went and I thanked everyone from like the beginning of college till then that had helped me get to that. So a couple partners with the law firm and the people, like I just sent each person an individual note and just said like I couldn't have gotten to this success without you doing this for me. And it was like just the best feeling to be able to go back and let all those people know how they inspired me.
love it. Okay, are you ready for rapid fire questions?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it. Number one, what is the best leadership advice you've ever received?
It was a CFO who told me to just get over it. And I was like, huh? And I was like spinning and spinning as I think women do more than men, spinning and spinning. And he's like, just get over it. And I was like, is that what men do? And he's like, yeah. And every time I spin now, I just hear his voice. I'm like, just get over it. It works.
I love it. Okay, two, what's one book or resource that changed how you lead?
My executive coach, Susan Penn.
I could not agree with you more. I learned so much from the first executive coach that I had and subsequent ones that really just helped me get outside of my head
Yep.
and see things from a different perspective, and then also role play
Yep.
with those. And some of my coaching clients, that's some of the things that we'll do is hey, why don't you record a Zoom meeting when you're in a leadership type event and send it to me, and then we'll analyze it and
Wow.
look through and see how we can grow from it. So something like that I
Whew,
love.
I
Okay.
love that. And if you have a bad one, just go get a different one. You don't have to stay with that person if it's not working.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Yeah,
exactly. It's like the idea of, if you don't like this restaurant, you're going to go to a different restaurant, right? So if
exactly.
you have or a therapist or a coach or
Right.
whatever, if that one isn't a good fit for you, guess what? There are
Exactly.
a lot out there that are amazing. Oh,
Exactly.
so spot on. Okay, what's the biggest, number three, what's the biggest misconception people have about being a COO?
That you're only focused on metrics and that you don't care about the people.
Full stop. Okay, four, most badass decision you ever made in your career.
Okay, so I was at a company called Profit Line and I was running HR and legal, and they were hiring a business development guy, and they were going to pay his guaranteed bonus was higher than the bonus that I could earn. And I was so annoyed. So I went to the CFO, who I was very close to, and said, this isn't right. And he just got me wrong that day. He babbled on and on about HR and legal's not that important. It might have been the reason I eventually wanted to be a COO. And I was like, okay, that's annoying. So I went back to my office and I closed the door and I called my husband. I'm like, I am so mad. And he's like, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to go work somewhere else. He's like, where are you going to work? And I'm like, I don't know. Hold on. I pulled up the job list and I'm like, GreatCall. I'm going to go work at GreatCall. That looks like a great fit. And he's like, okay, Lynn. I was like, well, I'm going to send my resume now. And 2.5 weeks later, I had an offer at GreatCall, which ended up being the best thing I've ever done. So,
Oh, I love that. I love that. That is amazing. Okay.
yeah.
Let's see. Number 5. What's a belief about leadership that you've completely changed your mind about?
I really thought you had to look a certain way, act a certain way, wear uncomfortable clothes, wear high heels, have this image, always be professional, never be yourself, blah, 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 blah. None of that is true. You can wear really comfortable clothes, you can be yourself, you can speak plainly, you don't have to use big words, and you can really be a great, great leader.
The comfortable clothes part really stands out to me because when we were building the software company, the great thing about building a software company is they expect you to wear jeans and t-shirts, right? And then later after that, I was just like, unless I'm really going to see a customer and I know that their core is to whatever, I'm going to be in. So if you come to my office at Emory, you will see me in jeans and a t-shirt or hiking pants and a shirt or something like that. I do not care. I think the days of when you had to, dress in all those other ways are going away, and they cannot go away fast enough for me.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, number 6. What's something corporate leaders need to talk about more openly?
I think corporate leaders need to say when they don't know. I think corporate leaders need to talk about their failures. I think corporate leaders need to be vulnerable. I think you can still really be a strong leader. I think people are afraid to show that side of themselves. But I think it's going to help you build connection, authenticity, and credibility with the people that
I
you work
think the
with.
part about saying when you're wrong or you don't know are two
100%.
of the most. I immediately respect a leader so much more when I hear them say those things. I don't lose confidence in them at all. In fact, I gain confidence in them because then I have more confidence in what they say when they really strongly feel like they do know.
Yeah, and the smartest CFO I've ever worked with was the first one to raise his hand and ask the question in the room. Like, I'm sorry, I don't understand this. And it was such a good role model for me because I'm like, you're the smartest person in the room and you're willing to say you don't know something. And none of us knew it either, but now you've
That's the
made it so
thing.
we all
Yes.
can. Exactly, exactly.
I had a situation like that early at Florence. We hired our first marketing person, and we're in a meeting, and he says some phrase. I have no clue what. And I'm sitting in the room with these other executives. Everyone's shaking their head in
Hmm.
agreement, and I'm like, okay, wait. I have no idea what that phrase is. And then they pick up and they're like, oh, I don't know either. And I said out loud, I said, you guys suck. You guys would have just sat here and
Yep,
acted like
yep,
you
all the
knew
time,
it.
all the time.
Okay, what's one word your team would use to describe you?
Decisive.
Love it. Love it. What's next for you?
I'm in a weird phase. I am open to outcomes. We've been working with the private equity firm that owned us originally. We've been looking for a company to buy the last 3 years. We haven't found anything. It's been like the worst market for finding a company. We came close 2 weeks ago and it didn't work out. So I don't know. I don't know if we're going to keep going this route. I don't know if I'm looking for a COO role. I don't know. I've started talking to people and putting some feelers out there. And so I think at the beginning of the year, hopefully I have more clarity. But I am, for the first time, don't know exactly what's coming next. It is equally terrifying as it is exciting. I was never a person that was open to outcomes earlier in my career. So I kind of like it, and I really believe like all the connections, all the conversations. I just believe like the next right opportunity is coming, but I'm not sure what it is. And so in this last 3 years, I've had an opportunity to explore other things, and spent a lot of time painting. I've become an artist in that time, but I'm ready to go back. I really, really want to create another work environment where people can thrive.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It really brings so much joy to life. So, do you have a high level summary that you're allowed to share of what type of company your team is looking for?
Yeah, it's likely consumer driven recurring revenue. And it's just been a quiet time in I mean, every article in the paper is about this. So it's been a really, really quiet time. So we're actually kind of agnostic as to what the industry is, but it needs to be a company that my partners are great marketers and know how to really build an amazing business model. And then I'm really good at going and cleaning up the culture, the operations, if there are legal issues. So it needs a company that's kind of humming, but needs those things to go to the next level. And it's not easy to find.
No, can you explain to the audience what recurring revenue means?
Yeah, recurring revenue means that you, versus like selling a widget and you get paid for it once, you sell a service that you get paid for monthly. And you'll see a lot of companies trying to develop this now because it's really a great business model. So you'll see a lot of people selling memberships now to a product that traditionally was one and done. And then it comes with savings and a few things. But the cell phone business was a good example. You buy a cell phone and then you pay monthly for the service.
Yep. Oh,
And
that's a great
so,
example.
yeah, so that's what we're looking for.
Okay, awesome. And tell the listeners how they can connect with you.
Yeah, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. That's probably the best connection. And you can find me under Lynn Herrick.
And we will include your link in the show notes. And so it is a requirement of the Badass Leaders podcast that you share your favorite motivational quote. What do you have for us today, Lynn?
Okay, so it's by some lord from some period in England, so he's irrelevant. But what he said is, there are two things to aim at in life. First, to get what you want, and after that, to enjoy it. And only the wisest of people achieve the second. And that is something that
That
I've
is
really been focused
amazing.
on. Yeah.
I just got chills. Yeah.
This is a
Because,
very wise person. I don't know who he is, but he's very wise.
yeah. Well, and because here's what happens. We focus our energy on getting what we want. And then we don't pause and we just
Right.
are like, okay, now what do I want? And now what do I want? And now versus sitting in the moment. And I see this in companies and teams a lot. And I think great leaders, when your team reaches a goal, to then take time to celebrate and appreciate it.
That's right. That's right. I love that.
Well, this has been amazing. Thank you, Lynn, for absolutely bringing new badass to this podcast. I am very grateful.
Thank you. I loved every minute of it.
Thanks for joining me for today's episode of the Badass Leaders Podcast. To hear more interviews with industry experts and learn how to grow your career and leadership potential, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to ensure you do not miss future episodes. This podcast is a production of the AGN Group. To learn more about the AGN Group, visit our website at theagnGroup.com. There, you can discover more about our services, which include hosting workshops, management consulting, brand strategy, keynote speaking, and more. Follow us on all social media channels shown on the screen and displayed in the show notes. And until next week, be brave and be badass.